KWT slaying.
Salama family, salama, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. And hopefully, this won't be a long show, but that's sort of relative. Give me a 1 if I sound okay. Give me a 2 if I don't. It's a little hard for me to tell. All right. So we're going to cover some things that we talked about in the past, but, some people may be sort of new to the idea. And, what we're going to talk about today is the reason why I see a lot of things different from a lot of people. A lot of people will approach the prophetic. I'm talking about end time prophecy, eschatology, from the high level. The conflict between Esau and Jacob, right? The conflict between the Medes and the Persians, all that, it's a high level understanding of the dynamic of prophecy. Now, I'm going to explain today how I see things. Now, I'm going to come today from a few scriptures we talked about in the past, but here's the way I see scripture. And it took a while to really get this perspective. And the perspective, like, for instance, we're going to cover, like, let's say Revelation 13, 17, stuff like that. We're also going to talk about what's happening today in what we call the Middle East. But there's a history there. And I approach the scriptures from the viewpoint of a portrait. Because what we see in Revelation is like a snapshot, right? It's sort of like those portraits of Napoleon. And you see in there, he have his hand in his vest, and you might see a horse, or you might see some other things, and people speculate about what's the message in the portrait. That's sort of what we get, right? We get this picture of something that was progressive, but we see that progression in its totality as well, right? So we have a snapshot, or we have a portrait of this end time system. So that's why sometimes things get a little fuzzy, because we know a lot of the things that are supposed to happen are in the future, but then they're also in the past. Well, how can that be? Because it's a snapshot, it's a portrait, it's a picture. And in that picture, you see everything that happened in the past, everything that's probably happening in the present, and everything that's going to happen in the future, because it's a portrait, it's a snapshot of everything. Hopefully that makes sense. And I think as we move along the prophetic timeline, we're going to see some interesting things. And, like I say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. This is prophecy. prophecy is a little bit subject to speculation because we don't really know till it happens. And even when it happens, we think we know. And sometimes we don't. So y'all remember this. This is very important. This is very important. I'm having trouble with my mic. Hold on one sec. I got to get a new mic. Hold on. All right, got it. Yeah, I got to get a new mic. So this is very important for understanding end time prophecy. See, the thing that we have to understand, because a lot of people don't, because this is why some people say that, you know, the woman that rides the beast is the Vatican, and everybody got their own view of it. And hey, you're welcome to have your own view. But things have to align with the typology and symbology within scripture. So Daniel being one of the most important, right? So here, we know all about the head of gold, and we know all about the arms and the breastplate of brass and all these type things, right? Thighs of brass, silver, all this. Here's what we need to also always understand, which makes it easier to understand the prophetic picture. We're dealing with nations. Regardless of the type of metal it is, the most important thing is we're dealing with nations: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and a divided kingdom. Now, the divided kingdom is very important. Now, remember, according to Daniel, the Most High is going to destroy this statue by hitting it in the feet. But just like that portrait, this statue is a snapshot of prophecy. It's a snapshot of history. It's a snapshot of conquest of the Israelites. This statue is a composite of nations. And so this is the beast for all purposes that rules the end times. Now, what do you mean by that, Yakoba? Because isn't the head of the Babylonian Empire? Isn't the arms Medo-Persia, and isn't Greece and Rome? Those are separate empires, yes, but there's one entity called the beast. Now, why, when the rock that is formed with our hands destroy the feet of this statue, right? And it destroys the entire kingdom, because what we have here is an abomination. What we have here is the fourth beast, which is different from all the other ones. Because why? It is an international order. It is a system to bring in peace. Now, let's go. Like I say, keep that in mind, that we're dealing with nations working together. We're dealing with nations working together. This is an international system that was formed over time. Now, remember that with our people, we were oppressed by every one of these nations. But guess what? They formed an alliance. Can we say Psalm 83? They formed an alliance. Now, Revelation 13, the dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and mouth like that of a lion. Now, it resembled a leopard, right? It wasn't a leopard. Okay, but it had feet like those of a bear and mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. Now, remember, let me go back. It's a snapshot, it's a portrait of everything that would happen from the past all the way to the future, from the head all the way down to the toes. But we have another imagery, and remember in Daniel, we also talk about the fourth beast, which is the fourth kingdom, which is the worst of them all, which is what we're in right now, which is the fourth kingdom, right? Which is worse than them all, but we're dealing with a beast. Now, when did the beast rise out of the sea? We're going to discuss that. This is my opinion. Eat the meat, spit out the bones. I'm going to show you when I believe that the beast ascended out of the sea. Revelation 17, Babylon, a prostitute on the beast. One of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits by many waters. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery, and inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries." Now, we discussed this before, who I believe the whore is, or the prostitute. I believe that is America. I think it can be nobody else but America. And if anybody say anything else, they really can't prove it. Right? America fits the imagery. But I'm going to show you the timeline of when I think these things happened. Right? When that beast ascended out of the sea. Because remember, the sea is people, multitudes, nations, and tongues. Verse 3, then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, remember, this is a snapshot. Just like we saw that statue. It's a snapshot. It's a picture. It's a portrait. We see the full image of the beast. It's a beast covered with blasphemous names, having what? 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, this is the full picture of it. But remember, all of these things happen over history. All of these things happen over time. All of these things happen progressively to build the beast that we see today. So the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand filled with the abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. The name written on her forehead was Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes or harlots, and of the abominations of the earth. So this woman, this beast system that the woman sits on, right? Remember, I said that the statue was a conglomeration of nations. And the toes is what the stone hit and destroyed that kingdom. And then Yah's kingdom came and ruled. This beast is the same thing. This beast is a conglomeration of nations. Now, I can't go through everything, so y'all got to go back and look at the scriptures dealing with the fourth beast and how it's different from all the others. And it has, iron teeth and it rips and shreds to pieces. So this beast that the whore is riding is also a conglomeration of nations. Now, like I said, some of this stuff is probably repeat for some of y'all, but I'm going somewhere. And I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore the testimony of Yeshua. Now, according to Christian eschatology, the people here is the church. I disagree. I believe the people here, the holy people, are always who the holy people were, and it is the chosen. It is the Israelites. Now, you could agree to disagree with that, and you can say that, hey, believing Christians are Israel, but that's not true. Believing Gentile Christians do not become Israel. They become citizens of the kingdom, but they don't become Israel because Israel is a bloodline. Now, you could become part of the family, but you could never be the bloodline because the promise is to the bloodline, but I digress. So when I saw her, I was greatly astonished. And the angel said to me, "Why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that she rides, which has 7 heads and 10 horns." Now remember, all of this was progressive because remember, all of this is a snapshot of everything that happened in the past and everything that would happen in the future. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and yet will come up out of the abyss and go to its destruction. The inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world, will be astonished when they see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come. What does that mean? The beast that you see, that the woman that she's riding, is, as I stated, an international order. It is a conglomeration of nations, just as we saw with the statue of Daniel. It is an international order. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills or mountains on which the woman sits. Now, hills or mountains represent authority, just like the horns do. Okay, so these 7 mountains on which the woman sits, depends on your translation. There are also 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is. The other has not yet come, but when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. He's what? An 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. Now, a lot of times this was told to us in the frame of a man. And I'm not saying that the embodiment of this system will not be a man, but what I'm saying here is that the beast system is an international order, and that international order is a conglomeration of nations that is controlled by another nation called the whore, called the prostitute. The woman rides or controls the international order. If you want to flip it, put that woman on the back of the Daniel statue. It will be a woman or a nation sitting on the back of the Daniel statue that controls those world governments, those nations. So you have 7, even it is the 8. Now, I'm going to come back to this because I want to show you my take, right? You don't have to agree with me. But here's what I think is happening here. Remember, it's a snapshot of past, present, and future. So we're exploring the moments, the shaping of an international order, right? From the League of Nations to the G7 and BRICS. So remember, what did I tell you? That the statue of Daniel is what? A conglomeration of nations. It is an international order. It is that Psalm 83 conspiracy. And now we have this international order that rose during a certain period of time. And here's what I think, and this is my opinion, you ain't got to agree, that this beast rose from the abyss, or rose from the sea. Because remember, the beast came what? Out of the abyss. What is the sea? The sea is the abyss, right? The sea is the abyss. And what is the sea? People, multitude, nations, and tongues. So there's a lot of nuances to the scriptures, which is why it's hard for a lot of people to understand, because be honest with you, this stuff is like playing chess or like programming. It's like, you got to put all the little pieces together. So 1919 and 1945 with the League of Nations, formed after World War I, aimed for what? Global cooperation. So this, in my opinion, you don't have to agree with it. This, in my opinion, is when the beast rose from the sea. Why? Because remember, the beast rose from the sea, and the sea is people, multitude, nations, and tongues, right? The League of Nations is from multiple nations. It is a conglomeration. It is a beast system. It is a conglomeration of nations that oppress Israelites. Okay. So, and it rose from amongst what? The people of the world. It was called the League of Nations. It was what? A global cooperation. It was a global cooperation. So then, here's, in my opinion, here's when a woman came, right? When a woman rode the beast in 1945, United Nations established to promote peace, led by allied powers. Once again, associated with the people of the world, world peace, world order, world government, right? This, in my opinion, is when when the beast rose from the sea. But 1945, when the United Nations was formed, is when the United States controlled the world order. 1945, when the United Nations came into power, is when the whore, which is America, controlled the international order. That statue, that fourth beast with the iron fangs, that's when the whore controlled the international order. And this is when the United States took over, right, and controlled the international order, and the whore rode the beast. Ever since then, ever since 1945, America controlled the United Nations. America controlled the whore. Remember, because the woman, the whore, she sits on many waters. America had bases in almost every country in the world. 1944, Bretton Woods, World Bank and IMF created for what? Global financial stability. You cannot have the international beast system of Revelation 13 with what? Without a global financial system. Why? Because no man can what? Buy or sell unless he has the mark, the name, or the number of his name. No one can buy without the mark of the beast, which means an international global financial system. So this is the start in 1944 of the building of the International Monetary Fund, the global system. 1947 and 1991, Cold War era, U.S. and allies faced off against the Soviet Union, shaping what? Global systems. This is when the global system was stabilized. This is where the global monetary system and transactions and trade was stabilized. And then we had to deal in the 1970s with the US dollar being tied to oil. This is where America, the woman who controlled the beast through financial gain, the woman who rides the beast, which is America, who rides the international system, controlled through the monetary fund that she started at Bretton Woods, right? Through the economic financial order that she established after the quote unquote US controlled what? The global system. After the US defeated the Soviet Union. 1975 G7 formation. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, US coordinated economic policies. The G7, and we talked about this before, is the seven horns, or the seven heads, that is, the seven heads. He belongs to the seven. The seven heads are seven hills or mountains or kingdoms, right? Authority on which the woman sits. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. It should be an easy question because I gave you the answer. Who controlled the G7, family? Who controlled the G7? I'm just saying, is it a coincidence that all of this seems to line up? It just so happens that America controls the G7. So here we have the global order of evolution, or what we call the rise of the beast from the sea, which is from amongst the people. So from the League of Nations to the G7, key milestones shape the international order, influencing global cooperation, finance, and politics. This is how the woman controlled the beast that rose from the sea. So in essence, this is the beast, this statue. And America is the whore that rides the back of it and controls it. But the whore is going to be kicked off the beast. But G7 is the 7 heads. Now, one thing that we got to make sure we take note of, and we go back here to Revelation. It said, this calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other is yet not come. But when he comes, he must remain for only a little while. Now remember, the beast system here is nations. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. He is the 8th. He is even of the 7, depending on your translation. He's the 8th king. Now, remember, we're dealing with nations. Now, based upon this logic, this can tell us who the 8th king is. Now, I'm not saying what I'm about to say is correct, but it looked like it could be based upon what we're seeing. So, but it looks like, let me get there. Let's see. I thought I had that in here. Anyway, so here we have the G7. Now, I must have removed it from my slide presentation, but in the G7, right, the G7 became the G8. Does anybody remember what nation became the G8? What nation is in the news today? What nation is dealing with Ukraine? So Russia became the G8. Russia became the G8. So we got to understand that there's a lot of history and things in the past that we're seeing, things that have happened already from our point, and things that have happened presently and going into the future. Now, let me go back here to Revelation. It says, the 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received the kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. Now, let me ask y'all a question. So this puts this in a different perspective. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not received the kingdom. Now, I believe, and I'm going to show you who I believe the 10 is, and I talked about this in the past. They're going to rule for 1 hour with the beast. Now, as we have stated, the G8 was Russia, correct? Russia is also the one that's in the news today that's opposing the whore. Now, you got it right, Collab. So now we have the rise of the 10 horns, the BRICS nations. Now, I showed you in the past that what number is BRICS at currently? It's at 10. Now, some are saying India might leave or something like this, but right now, BRICS is at 10. BRICS is the rise of the 10 horns. Now, some people are going to say, well, Yacobo, it was the European Economic Community way back in the day. Some people are going to say, Yacobo, it can't be BRICS because they already had 10. And I used to think that as well, but there's nuances in the Bible that show you that it could never have been those other nations. And I'm going to show you why, but let's go ahead. So 2001 BRICS coin. Economist Jim O'Neill coined BRIC for Brasilia, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. 2009, first BRICS summit. BRICS nations held their first summit to enhance cooperation, assert global influence. What? Global influence, the rise of the 10. 2010, BRICS expands. South Africa joined BRICS, forming BRICS. 2010 to 2020, multipolar world order. BRICS rise shifted global power dynamics towards a multipolar world order. See, this is different from the whore because remember, the whore controls the beast. It was a unipolar world order. So the present BRICS challenges what? The G7. BRICS nations challenge the G7's dominance in economic influence and political alignments. Now, here's the reason why those other nations, the European Economic Community and all of that could not have been the 10 back in the day, is Daniel 2:41. Just as you saw that the feet, which is the 10 toes, which is the 10 horns, right, of Revelation, just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom. Ah, there you go. This is why the European Economic Community and some of the other ones that look like they could have been a 10 could never have been a 10 because they were not divided. They were unified. They were all together. The Western nations aligned with the whore, aligned with America to control the beast, to control the international order. The beast, the 10 horns that grows upon, let's put it that way, the 10 horns that grows upon the beast, right? That's what we see what BRICS is. They rule 1 hour, so a short time with the beast. And it's a divided kingdom. Why? Because you're going to have the West and the East. You're going to have the Western Empire, which is what's running right now, and then the Eastern Empire. So, BRICS nations emerge and shifted global power dynamics, challenging traditional Western dominance. Western dominance is a domination of the international order by America, France, Germany, Belgium, all of these Western Roman entities. But remember, the Bible says that the 10 hate the whore. They hate her. This is why you're going to have a divided system, because when the woman is taken down and everybody's going to be crying and everybody's going to be upset because nobody buy or trade in her merchandise anymore. Why? Because she's going to be destroyed. Why is this important, Yacob? But this is important because of what we're dealing with today, and we're going to get there. So Daniel 2, it says, finally there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron. For iron breaks and smashes everything, and as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. Just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly of baked clay, partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom. How many of you understand that this is, or will be, let's say, a divided kingdom? When America is kicked from off her lofty position of controlling the United Nations and the international world government, how many of you can see that it's going to be a divided kingdom? Because here's the thing. Russia is aligned with Africa, right? The West hates Africans and hate black folks. The Western order wants to keep their foot on black folks' necks, or AKA the Israelites. But Russia wants to help liberate them. But here's the dynamic, which is very sort of scary if you want to ask me. If Russia was the eighth, and the eighth is associated with the beast, then Russia is probably going to be the leader of the 10 horns, right? Which is the leader of the new beast system, right? Because the Bible says something unique is that the 10 hate the whore. They're going to destroy her. But the eighth horn is the one that's going to rule. Who's the head of the BRICS right now? Russia is pretty much the head. Russia pretty much kicked off BRICS. Russia is the one that's going to end up ruling. Russia, the only one outside of China who can put up any kind of opposition against the horde. So this new kingdom that's coming, the BRICS nations, is this new system that they're gonna have. It's gonna be an East and West empire, a divided kingdom, right? But Russia's gonna be at the head. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. Maybe things gonna change. Maybe it won't be that way, but that's what I see. So yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay, as the toes were partly iron, partly clay. So the kingdom will be partly strong, partly brittle. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay. So you know how America tried to unite the world and have all the immigrants and all of the mixing going on. That's not going to work out. Even as we see in Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51, that the people are going to go back to their own homes. It's not going to be this too much mixed anymore. People ain't going to want to be hanging out with people who don't look like them. It's not going to be too good. Maybe some places, but a lot of people are going to go back to their home. So the other thing we have to note that in the time of these 10, when the BRICS nations formed, right? God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. So we talked about this before, that God will set up a kingdom, which is the Israelites, that will never be destroyed. Now, I wasn't going to show this part, but a few of you all, y'all don't see it. So it just adds to the theory. We'll put it that way. An article I did yesterday called Trials and Birth in the Final 40 Days. Now, I'm not saying anything gonna happen. Go read, my caveat in the beginning of it. It is speculation on my part, just like with anything. And I sort of said to Justin that Z was the Antichrist, but I really don't know. Maybe he is, maybe not. But from what I see, if my understanding of the system is correct, and the eighth horn is the one that's gonna rule, then Russia will probably be the one in control, because, and we're going to get to some other parts of why I sort of put a question mark on Xi Jinping. But, I mean, he still looks like he could be a good candidate, because of Kai Xi stigma, stick of the prick denoting ownership. Xi is his name. So there's a possibility. But I'm going to show you why that may not be the case. But so anyway, read this, when you get your time, about the trials and birth in the final 40 days, because I find it interesting. So anyway, we have this dynamic of the beast that rises out of the sea. It existed at least since, the early 1919, at the League of Nations. But as I stated, the beast was and is not even is the eighth. He is the eighth. And he is of the seven. Now, remember, Russia was the G8. It was a member of the G7, because that's what it was. It was the G7, right? So here it says that whichever horn or head is the eighth head, it is of the seven. Now, we know that Russia was the G8. It was known as the G8. Now, for me, for you all that believe Obama the Antichrist, I don't believe that for one instance. The whole world ain't worshiping no black man. You can't convince me of that one. But let's go back to what we see in the beginning. The beast that rises from the sea is this global international order that rules the world. Part of the conspiracy that continued from when we got kicked out of our land. Now, there's something that we have to understand. Right here is when I believe the beast rose from the sea. But the conspiracy occurred before then to build this international order, to cut us off from being a nation. There was a conspiracy, Psalm 83, to cut us off from being a nation. So, how do they cut us off from ever being a nation? Well, they form an international world order. They form a world government that they can control all of the resources. They create something and policies that talk about carbon emissions where they can control the resources. They lock down everything and everybody in these 15-minute cities and all these things to keep us under control. This is the plan. It's not going to work, but this is the plan. So during that time, remember in the early 1800s, there was such a thing as the Berlin Conference. Now, the Berlin Conference was before the formation or the rise of the international order. The Berlin Conference was the beginning of trying to control us and our resources. Well, not the beginning, but one of the means of getting control of the resources. So what we have to understand that, as we see in Joel chapter 3, the Bible says they divided my land. I told you that is Africa. That is sub-Saharan Africa. They divided my land. So the plan was in place even way back from the prophecies since Psalm 83, all the way throughout history, all the way with the Inquisition, all the way with chasing us and enslaving us. The plan was to make sure we would never rule. And in order to do that, all of the nations had to conspire to cut us off from being a nation. And they did this through this conglomeration, this international order, this beast system that's different from the others, the fourth beast that rules the world. They did that through this international system. And one of the main people, or one of the main countries that is, of this international conspiracy is France.
French Army's General Leclerc. The former chief of staff of the French Army's General Leclerc has announced a military recolonization of Africa by France and Europe in the next 10 years. This statement has caused widespread concern and controversy, with many people expressing their opposition to the idea of European countries once again exerting their influence and control over African nations. The announcement comes at a time when there is already significant unrest and instability in many parts of Africa, particularly in the Sahel region. Some experts argue that the withdrawal of French troops from the Sahel could fuel neo-colonial fantasies and pave the way for further military interventions by European powers. General Leclerc does not beat around the bush. The withdrawal from the Sahel is a failure for France, Europe, and Africa. He affirms that Europe must defend its interests on the African continent and be capable of taking charge of its destiny on a military level. General Leclerc's arguments in favor of military intervention in the Sahel region are nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to justify France's desire to regain its influence over the region by force. His claims of destruction of government and state apparatuses, civil war in many countries, and difficulties linked to developments in climate are simplistic and lack nuance. Furthermore, his assertions about the demographic explosion of the African continent and its supposed consequences for Europe are unfounded and misleading.
So we have the old order, which is the Western run order, run by France, run by the United States, run by Britain, run by Germany. The international order is changing, as we saw, as BRICS rises to create a multipolar order. Now, this is one of the reasons why the new system that's going to be run by BRICS is going to be divided, because the Western arm wants to control Africa. The Western arm or leg, whatever you want to say, wants to control African resources and African people and keep us subjugated. But Russia has aligned themselves with the continent. Russia has aligned themselves with the Africans. This is part of their power base. So there's this new system of a multipolar order now known as BRICS. The Bible refers to it as the 10 horns coming to power. Now, the old order, which is France and Germany and all these, and they're going to be put into a weakened position, wants to keep things like they are. Because without Africa, France don't exist. Without African resources, France is going to be poured in Yemen. So without Africa, France dies. So France continues as part of this conspiracy to control us. Now, why is this important? Because you can see the dynamics. You can see the continuation of the policies under what they call colonialization, which is really the pursuit of an international world governmental order that they deceive the nations by saying it's a world order of peace. It is a mechanism of solving disputes. And people in China and people in Africa and people in other continents, they believe the lie that this is all about being able to communicate and trade. It's not. It's about world domination and control of the resources and control of God's people. It is the same people that have been persecuting us from day one. It's the same people that kicked us out of Portugal and Spain, sent us to Sao Tome, sent us to Angola, sent us into captivity around the world as slaves. It is the same power structure. We call it colonialization. Some people call it white supremacy. But there's a new system, a multipolar order, where that means there's less control over the mechanizations of this international system that the whore has. Because remember, the whore was controlling the international order through a monetary global financial order. But now, if you notice, Zimbabwe has their new gold coin. Everyone's starting to trade in their own currencies. You're having the formation of a multipolar order. That is why you have the 10 toes. The 10 toes or the 10 horns represents a multipolar order. So you have the 10 toes, which is the BRICS, which is the multipolar order that's going to rule for 1 hour with the beast, which, remember, the beast represents kingdoms or nations. I believe it's probably Russia going to be the head of it. But remember, in the end, and in my opinion, it's my opinion, about 800 years to 1,000 years later, after we back in the land and enjoying life, Gog and Magog come to take a spoil. So we're going to be betrayed again in the future, but the Most High is in control. So why is this important? This is very important because of what we're dealing with. Because remember, we're dealing with these nations and the conspiracies of these nations. Now, this is where I think some of you all probably want to step in to have an understanding of what's happening right now.
Israel fired retaliatory strikes on Iran this evening, just days after Iran launched 300 missiles and drones in an attack on Israel as retaliation for another strike earlier this month in Syria. Fox 4's Blake Hansen is in studio with what we know so far. Blake.
Yes, Stephen, Heather, this is early Friday morning now in western Iran, and news is coming in by the minute, but there have been reportedly explosions in the western city of Isfahan. Now, some air carriers have since diverted their flights around that area, and it is worth noting Isfahan is a home to a major airbase for the Iranian military. It is also home to sites associated with Iran's nuclear program.
Now look at this area. Keep this in mind. Egypt, Israel, Iraq, Iran. Remember, you got Syria in there as well.
Again, we do not know what specifically has been targeted. A source tells Fox News that this was a limited strike, and there's no indication it was carried out by a manned aircraft, more likely by missiles. Now, this apparent escalation after Iran launched a missile and drone attack on Israel over the weekend. Israeli air defenses shot down nearly all 300 drones and missiles that Iran fired. Iran launched that attack in retaliation for an Israeli strike that killed 2 Iranian generals in Syria. Just today, the White House imposed sanctions against the Iranian manufacturers that developed the drones. used in the attack. Now, prior to reports of these explosions, the Iranian foreign minister told CNN today that if Israel chose to retaliate from the weekend attack, quote, the next response from us will be immediate and at a maximum level.
So Iran said if they attack, it's going to be immediate. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Iran has a history of, talking stuff, talking ish, and not doing ish. You know what I'm saying? Iran has a history of talking trash but not backing it up. But maybe they will. Now, based upon the historical phenomena that we see, prophetically speaking, looking at the colonialization of the international order, once again involved in this, right? The whores involved. That land in the Middle East works for the whore because they had to control the Middle East in order to control the world. Because the whole thing, look, if you don't get it now, you will never get it. The whole reason for all this mess is us. The whole reason for all this mess is they want our land. The whole reason they want all this control over the world is because they want to control Negroes. They want to keep us slaves, and they want to control our gold, our silver, our bauxite, our land, our animals, our water. In order to do this, they had to unite. What? To cut us off from being a nation. So today, we have a conflict. We call this area the Middle East. Some people call it Arabia. Now, as you know, I don't believe that land is our land. I don't believe that is the true Israel, because there was no nation of Israel. Israel is a people group. There's no such thing as a nation state called Israel in the Bible. It is a group of people. So, I don't believe that's our land. Not saying that we didn't control it at one time. I do believe that we controlled it. But that is not Jerusalem. But understand this, and some of y'all be getting a little ahead of me. We're dealing with the dragons of Arabia. So that land, that territory, the tongue, some ancient texts, some historical documents refer to it as the tongue of Africa, which is Arabia. The nations of the dragon of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and from the day that they set out their hissing shall spread what? Over the earth. I'm going to go read the rest of it. So that all who hear them will fear and tremble. Now, for the longest, I couldn't figure out who the dragons of Arabia was. But I believe I do today. I believe it is the nation of Israel. That whole land, that whole territory, that mass of land, that tongue is called Arabia. Where you called Palestine, aka Israel, is Arabia. I believe this is who we're dealing with now. Now, let's say prophetically speaking, I'm correct. We're dealing with 2nd Esdras 15. This is what I think is happening. And yes, I do believe, Jeremiah 50, 51. But that Jeremiah 50 and 51 has to deal more so with America and what's happening in Babylon. But 2nd Esdras 15 has to deal with what we're seeing today, in my opinion, more than likely. If I'm correct, and we are in that time, and it looks like it is to me, we going home soon. Hey, I ain't no prophet. I ain't never claimed to be a prophet. Don't say Jacob say we're going home next week, 2 days, 10 days, 3 years, whatever. I don't know. Is what I sense. But let's go back. We're going to go to the beginning. Second Esdras. This is where I think we're at right now, right? Now, we're going to start at verse 5. Beware, says Yahuwah, I'm bringing evils upon the world, the sword and famine, death and destruction on the world. Now, isn't this going to be a world war? Isn't everybody talking about World War III? Because iniquity has spread throughout every land, and their harmful doings have reached their limit. Therefore, says Yahuwah, I will be silent no longer concerning their ungodly acts that they impiously commit. Neither will I tolerate their wicked practices. Innocent and righteous blood cries out to me. Is not righteous blood crying out over there in the Middle East? And the souls of the righteous cry out continually, I will surely avenge them, says Yahuwah, and will receive to myself all the innocent blood from among them. I'm going to tell you this right now. You know, some of the people who they call Palestinians, you're not hearing about who being deleted, are Negroes or Israelites. Did you not know that Palestine has an African area or community? See, my people are being led like a flock to the slaughter. I will not allow them to live any longer in the land of Egypt, but I will bring them out with a mighty hand and with an uplifted arm, and will strike Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all its land. So there's a world order, a world government that this land in the Middle East belongs to, is part of, attacking people in Arabia. And these people, in my opinion, are the dragons of Arabia that we see in 2nd Esdras 15. Now, what we see in verse 10 is that God's people got to leave Egypt, which I believe is America, because America is both Egypt and Babylon. Let Egypt mourn in its foundations because of the plague of chastisement and castigation that Yahuwah will bring upon it. So this all the plagues, all the judgments. I'm going to skip down because we've been through this before. Verse 28. What a terrifying sight appearing from the east. The nations of the dragons of Arabia. Now, I told you who I believe the dragons of Arabia is. It's the Ish people. This is my opinion. What a terrifying sight appearing from the east. The nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots. And from the day that they set out, their hissing shall spread over the earth. So, if I'm correct, if this is the prophecy of 2nd Esdras 15, then this war in the Middle East is about to spread over the entire earth, aka World War III. So that all who hear them will fear and tremble. Also the Caromanians. Now, I told you before in other teachings that the Caromanians are the Iranians. The Iranians, raging in wrath, shall go forth like wild boars from the forest, and with great power they shall come and engage them in battle. And with their tusk they shall devastate a portion of the land of the Assyrians with their teeth. What is the land of the Assyrians? Let's talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Let me finish this. And then the dragons, we know who the dragon of Arabia is, remembering their origin, shall become still stronger. And if they combine in great power and turn to pursue them, then these shall be disorganized and silenced by their power, and shall turn and flee. And from the land of the Assyrians, an enemy in ambush shall attack them and destroy one of them, and fear and trembling shall come upon their army, and indecision upon their king. So there's going to be a battle between the dragons and the Iranians, or the Caromanians. And they're going to destroy a portion of the land of the Assyrians. Assyria. I'm not going to read everything, but it says in the 9th through 17th centuries BC, the kings of Assyria forged the greatest empire the region had known. Its armies conquered lands from what? Egypt, the eastern Mediterranean coast, and parts of Anatolia, Turkey in the west, to the mountains of Iran in the east. The Assyrian heartland itself lay astride the Tigris River in Mesopotamia in what is today northern Iraq. Its original capital was the city of Ashur, known by this name since at least the mid-3rd millennium BC. In the period of the Assyrian Empire, the capital moved successfully to Kalhu, Nimrod, whatever. All right, so one of the things to take note is that part of the territory is from Egypt all the way to Iraq, northern Iraq. Now, we know that Iraq was attacked as well by Israel. Syria was attacked as well by Israel. Israel strikes back at Iran, explosions rock air base in the city linked to Tehran's nuke program, but U.S. denies nuclear facilities were targeted after Netanyahu launched attack in defiance of Biden. All right, let's scroll down. We know it was attacked, right? Let's see. All right, so here's Iran that was attacked. Here's Iraq. All the way up to northern Iraq is part of the territory of the Assyrians. Okay, so further explosions reportedly hit military targets in what? Iraq and Syria around the same time. Syria's state-run Sana news agency quoted a military statement as saying Israel carried out a missile strike targeting an air defense unit in its south, causing material damage. Where will Israel-Iran conflict blow up next? Red Sea, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon could all be future battlegrounds, sparking war so severe it will make Gaza look like an entree, says expert Michael Stevens. So the next battleground is Iraq and Syria and Lebanon. So let's go back. Also, the Caramonians, the Iranians, raging in wrath, shall go forth like wild boars from the forest, and with great power they shall come and engage them in what? Battle, where the next battleground. And with their tusks they shall devastate a portion of the land of the Assyrians. Okay, I'm just saying it looks like this could be fitting the prophetic scenario. So we could say, they shall devastate a portion of the land of the Iraqis, right? Or northern Iraq, land of the Assyrians. And remember, even Syria is going to be included. So this could be 2nd Esdras 15, what we're seeing. That means this war is going to increase and spread around the world, if I'm correct. And if I'm correct, and this war becomes World War III, we go home soon. That don't mean a lot of people going to make it out of here alive, but I mean, hey, if you live in righteous, the Most High say he's going to get you out. So, and then the dragons, remembering their origin, shall become stronger. And if they combine in great power and turn and pursue them, then these shall be disorganized and silenced by their power and shall turn and flee. Now, it says here, this is interesting. I'm not saying this necessarily applies to what exactly happened, but it says, remembering their origin shall become stronger. And if they combine in great power, they're going to combine, I believe, with the U.S. and turn to pursue them, which is the Iranians. Then these shall be disorganized and silenced by their power and shall turn and flee. And from the land of the Assyrians, which is, I believe the area of Syria and Iraq and all of that, an enemy in ambush. So somebody's going to ambush the dragons, which I believe to be the Ish. Somebody's going to attack the dragons and shall destroy one of them, and fear and trembling shall come upon their army and indecision upon their kings. So as they go into the Iraqi territory or Syria, somebody's going to attack them. 100 for the nation that you think gonna surprise them. It's just 100 in mind, not in truth. Who you think is going to surprise them and scare the living daylights out of them? And from the land of the Assyrians, an enemy in ambush shall attack them and destroy one of them, and fear and trembling shall come upon their army, and indecision upon their kings. Oh, yes, you got it right, Roderick. That's what I say. Russia. Putin already told them, you come into Syria, we're going to handle business. They're an ally. They are an ally. They are an ally. They're going to be surprised and they're going to be in fear when Russia comes. Now, if Turkey did it, hey, I think Turkey probably scare them a little bit, but I think Russia will definitely put them in fear and make them pause for a second and say, hey, I don't know what to do next. Indecision upon their kings. Look, if Russia attack you, what you going to do? Oh, I'm going to go attack Russia right quick. Or, oh, let's go finish attacking Iran. No, you're going to pause for a second. You're going to say, dang, I didn't think they were going to get in this fight like this. Now what we see, verse 34, see the clouds from the east and from the north to the south. So now there's this army, there's clouds of people or military coming from the east, coming from the north to the south. Their appearance is exceedingly threatening. Who else could that be? Russia, China, their allies. Full of wrath and storm, they shall clash against one another and shall pour out a heavy tempest on the earth and their own tempest. See, this is major. Now, watch this for a second. Watch what's happening here. And there shall be blood from the sword as high as a horse's belly, and a man's thigh and a camel's hock, and there shall be fear and great trembling. What? On the earth. Why? Because of nukes. Because of nukes. Because of major weaponry. Because Russia is involved. Those who see that wrath shall be horror-stricken. Why? Because they're going to see supersonic missiles going off. And they shall be seized with trembling. After that, heavy storm clouds shall be stirred up from the south and from the north, and another part from the west. But the winds from the east and shall prevail over the... Wait, I lost my spot. But the winds from the east shall prevail over the cloud that was raised in wrath and shall dispel it. And the tempest that was to cause destruction by the east wind shall be driven violently toward the south and west. Great and mighty clouds full of wrath and tempest shall rise and destroy what? All the earth. Who else could that be? What war could this be other than World War III? And its inhabitants. It's going to destroy who? The earth and its inhabitants. I'm telling you, this looks like it to me. We're going to find out real soon. And shall pour out upon every high and lofty place a terrible tempest, fire and hail and flying swords. Come on now. What's flying swords? Can we say supersonic missiles? Flying swords and floods of water, so that all the fields and all the streams shall be filled with the abundance of those waters. They're going to be destroying waters and rivers because of these flying swords, because of these missiles. They shall destroy cities and walls, mountains. Wait, hold up, wait a minute. How could they do this if this was the past? Because, you know, some people can say, well, this already happened. This happened when Babylon had attacked Assyria, blah, 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 blah. No. This ain't ever happened. They shall destroy cities and walls and mountains and hills. How do you do that? Missiles, flying swords. They're going to destroy mountains and hills and trees of the forest and grass of the meadows and their grain. Can we say nukes? They shall go on steadily to battle. So after they finish in the Middle East, after they finish handling business with the dragons of Arabia, after they shut down the dragons, what's next? They shall go to Babylon and blot it out. Why are they going to Babylon? Why are they going to Babylon? They're going to Babylon to blot it out because Babylon is an ally of the dragons of Arabia. They're going to Babylon to blot it out. They shall come to it and surround it. Let's go back to Jeremiah 50:51. They shall pour out on it the tempest and all its fury. Then the dust and smoke shall reach the sky, and all who are around it shall mourn for it. Is that not what we see dealing with Babylon, when the kings of the earth and those who had ships in the sea mourn for the destruction of Babylon? And those who survive shall serve those who have destroyed it. I'm just saying, I don't know about you. Look like a duck to me. This looked like it could definitely be World War III. It definitely looks like it could be what we're seeing today. It definitely looks like it could be 2nd Esdras 15. If it's not, hey, praise the Most High. We get to live another day. And you, Asia, now, you know, I believe this is China. And you, Asia, can I say China, who share in the splendor of Babylon, because, you know, China took all the resources and the same technology from America and built their kingdom and their nation and their financial system, and have gone along with the lollipops and all this stuff. China has gone along with it all. And you, China, Asia, who share in the splendor of Babylon and the glory of her person, woe to you, miserable wretch, for you have made yourself like her. Is not China a lot like America? You have decked out your daughters for prostitution. So she's a prostitute just like Babylon, right? To please and glory in your lovers who have always lusted after you. You have imitated that hateful one in all her deeds and devices. Therefore, Yahuwah says, I will send evils upon you, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, bringing ruin to your houses, bringing destruction and death, and the glory of your strength shall wither like a flower when the heat shall rise that is sent upon you. So you want to know why China not going to be able to control Africa with all the investments? Because God said he's going to weaken her. He's going to weaken her. Her strength is going to wither like a flower when the heat shall rise. You shall be weakened like a wretched woman who is beaten and wounded. You're going to get your butt beat. You're going to get beat down. They're going to put on a wife beater so that you cannot receive your mighty lovers. Would I have dealt with you so violently, says Yahuwah, if you had not killed my chosen people, continually exalting and clapping your hands and talking about their debt when you were drunk? So China going to be doing some bad stuff as well. I'm just saying, to me, it looks like it could be what we're seeing today. I mean, it really does. If it's not, hey, praise the Most High. Beautify your face. The reward of a prostitute is in your lap. Therefore, you shall receive your recompense, as you will do to my chosen people, says Yahuwah. So Yahuwah will do to you and will hand you over to adversities. Your children shall die of hunger, and you shall fall by the sword. Your city shall be wiped out, and all your people who are in the open country shall fall by the sword. Those who are in the mountains and highlands shall perish of hunger, and they shall eat their own flesh in hunger for bread and drink their own blood and thirst for water. Unhappy above all others, you shall come and suffer fresh miseries. As they pass by, they shall crush the hateful city, and shall destroy a part of your land and abolish a portion of your glory when they return from devastated Babylon. You shall be broken down by them like stubble, and they shall be like fire to you. They shall devour you and your cities, your land, your mountains. They shall burn with the fire all your forests and your fruitful trees. They shall carry your children away captive, plunder your wealth, and mar the glory of your face. I'm just saying, don't look like nothing that ever happened in the past to me. So we have the world order, the current world order, where the whore continues to ride the beast. She's in control of the beast, but the beast is going to be controlled by the 10 now. The whore is about to be knocked off the back of the beast. Babylon is about to fall. Babylon is fallen and has become the habitation of every foul spirit and demon. Babylon is going to be gone because the 10 hate the whore and going to burn her with fire. Babylon is about to disappear from history. The 10 is about to take over. The 10 is going to destroy the whore. According to the scriptures, though, the Most High got to bring us out of here first. As I showed you, even in 2nd Esdras, the scriptures say that the Most High has to bring his chosen back home first. So if we are in these times, we're about to leave. I'm just saying, if, according to the text. And then you're going to have everybody who act like, oh, you know, we've always knew we were going to have to flee. And we always knew we was going to have to leave. And we always knew America was Babylon. Say, no, I say, I thought you thought it was the Vatican. But the continuation of the conspiracy of the Psalm 83 nations, the continuation of the conspiracy to control the world finances, the conspiracy to control the nations and their politics and policies, the conspiracy to control the world's resources, the conspiracy to control the Israelites are all by those who have hunted black folks. It's the same nations that hunted down Israelites. It's the same nations that destroyed and attacked Africa. It's the same nations that to this day persecute his chosen. Is it a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that now people are starting to realize, hey, at least some of them, they say, some of those Israelites might be Jews. Some of them Negroes might be Jews. Some of the Africans might be Jews. Some of the Igbo might really be Hebrew Israelites. Some of them Israelites might be African Americans. All at the same time that many people are talking about, you know what? I think they need reparations. All at the same time, Babylon is falling, is falling, is falling. I'm just saying. I told you what I do. I put together the pieces of the puzzle. And if the image start to line up with what we have in the scriptures, I start to say, hey, maybe this is it. If it's not it, then guess what? Many people are going to get a reprieve. But I think there's a high probability this is it. A high probability. I'm not a prophet. I just tell you what I see. And as I stated before, don't forget to go to tailministries.com and read the article, Trials and Birth of the 40 Days, because I'm not saying God told me. I'm not saying I know anything. I'm saying this is what I see. I'm saying look at these coincidences. I'm saying look at the eclipse. I'm saying 40 days from the eclipse is Pentecost. I'm just saying. I'm saying Pentecost was the birth of the church, quote unquote, the assembly, if you want to call it. I'm saying that in a day, a nation shall be born. I ain't got nothing else to say. That's all I got. That's all I see. Maybe we leaving. Maybe we not. We gonna find out. I'm just sharing with you because I love y'all and I want y'all to be ready. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love you with the love of Messiah. If you want to support this ministry, you can by becoming a patron. You can also support this ministry by giving the Cash App, $TEOTW7101. And guess what? You can also give me a like. That'd be nice too. You can also share this video. That'd be great. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all in the wilderness, family. It looks like it to me. I don't know. We gonna find out. And please don't forget the Dry Bones Project.